My name is Richard Hales, and I'm the chef owner of Blackbrick. My heritage is interesting because I'm part Italian, part Irish, and part Pacific Islander. And the Pacific Islander part is Filipino. My grandmother is Filipino. She met my grandfather during the war. So I grew up eating the flavors of Filipino food, vinegars, soy, chilies, the balanced flavor that you find typically in Asian food, and I've been eating that since I was a baby. It's influenced my cooking because I grew up in an American household. So on one side I had this really intense Asian cuisine, and on the other side I had sort of this continental American cuisine coming from my mother. Just combining those two cuisines growing up, it really shows in my food where it becomes playful, where I do American dishes that I grew up with, and then I use an Asian, Korean, Chinese, Filipino pantry to create the dish. Traveling is very important to me, and it was certainly important when I built the menu for Blackbrick. I saw a side of China that typically you don't see. I saw a lot of Sichuan cuisine, Hunan cuisine, a lot of the cuisine from the Northeast. It was sort of like a real eye-opener to me that, there is a vast culinary world outside what we see in the US, which is typically Cantonese. I tasted a dish called dandan that I loved it. I love noodles, and it was the first time that I had this dish, and I fell in love with sort of the flavor profile of being the hot, numbing characteristics of the Sichuan peppercorn. And so I decided that would sort of be the base of the menu. Let's see how many dishes we can come off of this one particular dish of dandan. We don't buy the meat ground because we want to sort of control the process. This is the Chinese, way to ground meat. He's certainly pulverizing the meat, but it's not as pulverized as it would be if it went through a machine and it was completely ground. So you still get little chunks. We control the fat content of that as well. And, it's the first process of sort of building the dish by hand that we do. The meat first goes through a little quick blanch in oil, and then we're gonna start building the sauce. So we started off with some chili bean paste and chili oil. After that is a little bit of garlic, just to sort of caramelize the chilies and the garlic together. A little Shaoxing Chinese cooking wine. A meat stock, we make chicken, rabbit bones, any vegetable scraps that we have, and that goes in now. We make a seasoning spice here with salt, sugar, a white pepper, and then we're adding a Sichuan peppercorn oil also, which brings in a numbing characteristic. When I first started thinking about Blackbrick, it was going to be a New York-styled Chinese restaurant. But then as I continued to grow in Miami, I realized that wasn't relevant even to me anymore, that it was going to be a Miami Chinese-styled restaurant. So I started to look at the design, and I created the design here. The time that I spent in China, we have these basket light fixtures, and they just reminded me when I saw them of bird cages, and you see that everywhere in China. These light fixtures here, they reminded me of the hats that they wear like in the rice paddies, or baskets that they gather things in. I grew up in the 70s, so Kung Fu theater and those type of things were huge for me. And so Bruce Lee, which we have General Lee there, and we have Chuck Norris, part of the decor, but very stylized. It was sort of like a playful attempt that I really didn't want the restaurant to be in-your-face Chinese. I wanted it to have little subtle touches. There's a lot of Winwood in here too. We have the graffiti wall mural. We have the Blackbrick name is a tea brick from China. That sort of started the concept. On the color palette, Chinese is red and black, so I wanted to put that in there. There's a lot of subtle details, and it was my first full design job, and it's really been received very well. So these are our noodles. These are the long life noodles. And sort of the longer they are, the longer you're gonna live, and you're not supposed to break them. You're supposed to slurp the entire noodle. So this we drop into the water. They're gonna need like 3 or 4 minutes only. Okay. So you start with the peanut sauce, then we add the meat. We add roasted, we get raw peanuts and we roast them in the wok. Add that to it. White sesame seeds that we roast in the wok also. And just some fresh cut scallions just for a little bit of freshness to the dish because it's very rich. And that's it. That's the bowl.